I'm in Fishers today. I'm kind of far west in Fishers actually. And I used to live here. Used to live actually really close to these townhomes. And man, this place has changed dramatically since I first bought my first house here in Fishers in 2004. In fact, these townhomes, I can remember when they were built, not long after I moved in. So if you were go just down the street here, take a right in that neighborhood, 2004, bought my first house there for $129,000. That sounds crazy these days, and I would love to buy some homes for that price and actually live there a pretty good long time. When I was looking around this area, right here behind me, this old Sycamore is about the only thing that is really left from what was in this area. This was actually an old farm. There was actually a little red barn on this property, and obviously it's changed. There's wild ginger, there's really good sushi here, Chatham Tap, and several other restaurants through here too. And all that was built, again, not long after I moved in 2004. Now I lived in that house for a lot of years actually, and ended up meeting my wife while I was living there. Then we got married and we lived there for a little while, and we had one of our kids there and then decided, hey, this house is probably a little bit too small for us. Moved into another house, but it was only about half a mile away, really at most. As the crow flies, if you went a dead straight line, it was roughly half a mile. You went a little bit longer if you had to drive over to that house, but not very much. And we moved over to that house because it had another bedroom, it had a basement, and we had our second kid on the way. Now we moved into that next house for those things, but we also just really, really liked this location. Now, we had our third child at that house, and that house was still okay for us. It had plenty of room. It wasn't a problem at all, and we actually loved that house. We loved living in that area. We liked living close to all of this. Just off to my east, I can see downtown Fishers, even though this is really almost part of downtown Fishers in the Nickel Plate district. I love this area, but to say that it's changed over the past 20 years is just so dramatic. But, or maybe it isn't dramatic. Maybe you need to be really dramatic and say exactly how much this has changed, because where I'm standing right now in this concrete in these stores, again, there's a little farm here and a little barn here. But we moved away from all of this to where we currently live now, in Greenfield. Greenfield is much smaller than Fishers. It's on the up and up. It's definitely growing, but you're talking 25,000 people compared to the just over 100,000 people here in Fishers. And when I tell people that we moved away from Fishers and they're looking at Fishers, they're a little bit surprised by that. And some of the common thinking is that we moved away because of all of this, all of these changes. And maybe we didn't like the changes and the way that they're going right now, or maybe how much more traffic or how crowded Fishers can sometimes feel, although that's a matter of opinion for sure. I love Fishers, and my wife really likes Fishers as well. And we would still be in Fishers and not in Greenfield today if it wasn't for just the location of Fishers. And now Fishers is on the northeast side of Indianapolis, and for a little while that really worked for us. For my previous job, I was a high school science teacher at Westfield for 16 years. Where we were in Fishers was just fine. It took me 20-ish minutes or so to get to Westfield High School from here. It wasn't that bad, and I didn't mind the drive to and from. My wife, on the other hand, her job changed through the years after we got married. She was working in part in Avon, and if you don't know Indianapolis very well, Avon is way west of where I am right now. If you were to drive from here to Avon, that is a solid 45 to 50 minute drive from here. It's gonna take quite a while to get over there if there's any traffic. She was here, living here at least, and then also sometimes working over on the northwest side of Indianapolis. So that was a little bit better whenever you're living in this area, but then also in Greenfield to the east of Indianapolis. Now that driving day to day to Avon, to the northwest side of Indianapolis, and out to Greenfield, she was in the car with no traffic, 45 minutes at least one way to each of those locations. So Greenfield and Avon though, if there was any traffic at all, it would add another 15 or 20 minutes onto her commute. And at this point we had 3 really young kids, and it was just crushing our day to day. So the location of Fishers, while it's fantastic, but it has to be something that really does work for you. So if you live close by, or if you're from a place where you're just used to really long commutes, but here, and if you have to drive more than 30 minutes, most people look at you like you're a little bit crazy. Under 30 minutes is a more reasonable commute around here. And so if my wife is leaving before everybody gets up in the morning, and if she's coming home 6:30, sometimes 7 o'clock at night, and then the kids have to go to bed almost immediately, that's what I'm talking about with crushing our day to day. We didn't want that anymore. So while we loved Fishers, we decided to move away because we just needed to get closer to my wife's job. And at this point, it started to get more consistent as far as where she's going to be and more consolidated, and that was in Greenfield. So we decided, hey, let's just move to Greenfield. We can get you 10-ish minutes or so away from work. So it just doesn't take any time for you to get there and get back. And also that 10 minutes is really consistent. It doesn't change because where we are running into traffic for the most part is just almost not even possible. So it was something we could depend on. If she's leaving work at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 4:30, we know she's gonna be home within 10 minutes. Now for me in my job, I'm no longer at Westfield. I haven't been there in a long time now, 13 years or so that I've been doing this kind of stuff, real estate stuff, and I'm all over the place. So I'm back in Fishers today, but I'll be in Zionsville a little bit later on today. I'll actually be in Avon in a couple of days, and then in Greenwood next week. So I just need a home base, and Greenfield is completely fine with me. And while it really pained us to leave Fishers, it wasn't because all of this changed around us. We were really loving the changes. We really liked being part of a lot of this and seeing the growth and seeing how easy it was for a family to live in Fishers. When I say family oriented, it just means that there are a lot of things that a family can do in a place like Fishers. So it was geared towards your kids and your family, and we really, really enjoyed that. So it was painful to move away, but we had to make a choice. Was it our day-to-day that was gonna sacrifice, or were we gonna sacrifice maybe being away from some of this? So this is ultimately what we chose. So when I have conversations with people about, let's say, Fishers or Carmel or Zionsville, like I'm headed over to here pretty soon, or Greenwood, it is common for people to ask, why don't you live there? And it just comes down to location more than anything. If the location doesn't work for you, it's probably not a place that you want to end up, because your day-to-day is just going to suffer. And that's what happened with Fishers. We would absolutely live in Fishers again. We would absolutely live in Carmel. We would absolutely live in Zionsville. We would absolutely live in Greenwood. We would live in Avon if the location worked. Now, the nice thing about all of that is that if you're moving to the Indianapolis Metro, there are locations in Indianapolis that are really quite nice. There are locations all around Indianapolis that are really quite nice. So whatever location you need to help your day-to-day, to help your commute stay low, but if you work from home, then it's even more wide open for you. You have a lot of options. Actually, if somebody is that wide open geographically to living in just about any place around the whole Indy Metro, it's sometimes a little bit hard to narrow it down. It's tricky to do, and that's one of the pieces of our process to help you with that, is get familiar with all of these different areas, help you develop your preferences, help you develop your impressions about what those places are like, and determine for yourself if it's a fit or not. But we can get you on the right path with our process. So we chose our day-to-day. We moved away from Fishers, not because of anything negative with Fishers. We weren't chasing necessarily something better in a location either, other than it fit us more. So when people ask me, why don't you live in those locations, or why did you move away from those locations? It's simply that. The location just didn't work out for us like we thought it would. And what could happen to you is you could do all this work trying to figure out exactly where to live around the Indy Metro, and it could suit you forever. You could find a great place, but 5-6 years might go by and the location doesn't work out for you as much anymore. It just changes. The whole metro is way larger than what people realize for the most part. 2 million people in Indianapolis and all the surrounding cities. So there are places to go in the future if your location needs absolutely change. So where you live right now may not be your last place, but that's okay. You would have options in the future. So if you have questions about any location, anywhere around the Indianapolis Metro, reach out any way that you know how. We'll absolutely have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move anywhere in the Indy Metro. We'll catch you in the next one.